Class is in session. Welcome to episode 5 of the University of Badassery podcast. This is CJ Ortiz, the mental motivator, co-founder of the University of Badassery podcast. And seated at the right hand of my dark throne is the fire-breathing professor of ass kickery, the epitome of toxic masculinity, Patrick Metzel McNamara.
Rock and roll, baby.
Dude, I will introduce the hell out of you.
Man, that was epic.
I don't even care.
Ooh. Hell yeah, man.
I'm a professional.
You just need to hang around with me all the time.
That's right. No
Before I walk in to get a pint, just you enter first. And then,
before you go through the TSA.
Oh, hell yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen of the transportation safety.
Man, will scare the hell out of everybody.
Well, bro, it's been a long time.
Yeah, man. It's been month and a half?
Yeah, easy.
About that?
Yeah, almost 2 months, yeah.
We got to do monthly.
Yeah, that's
got too much stuff to talk about.
Yeah, that's our goal. Of course, everybody reminds us that we're taking our sweet ass time in between these podcasts, but I think everybody understands we're busy cats and it's not easy to coordinate. Now, of course, this one was a little challenging because we were going to have someone else on, and I did mention it on one of the Instagram stories and took that down, but we'll see if we can get that brother on again down the road. We got plenty of people that we can talk to, but we did originally intend, in fact, I think you said this, let's do a couple episodes with just the two of us. So we did one. This will be the second one. And hell, man, I mean, we've always got plenty to talk about. But, man, I was just telling Mac offline, brother, the testimonies and messages that I'm getting, the comments about
that's good.
What this podcast means to people.
I get a lot of them face-to-face during travels. Guys will come up and say, hey, man, love that University of Badassery podcast. I'm like, hell yeah, man. Thank you for listening.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of, popular podcasts out there that I guess would fall under the same category. It's dudes and they're, whether it's a rifle this or coffee that or, this fitness organization. There's a lot of that kind of stuff going on. And, to the listener, I was just talking to Mac offline again and just noting to him how, man, one of the reasons why I love this podcast is because we allow ourselves to bring a lot of color.
We're living life, bro. Living life.
Exactly.
Yeah, man. You can't be all gloom and doom and, talk about all the shit that's bad because there's a lot that's good out there.
Yeah, and you can't be dead. It's not always about, it's funny because we call it the University of Badassery, which we mean that when it comes to doing what we got to do in our personal lives. We do live like that. There is full-on attitude. There is the strong work ethic. There is the follow-through, all of that stuff. But we're going to enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're going to drink on the way.
Yep.
And I realize, there's people who had a problem with alcohol or whatever. We're not trying to make anybody else stumble. That's not the point. We just enjoying life. And we want to talk about what we want to talk about. And so, there's always a basic theme, I guess, maybe to a podcast. But shoot, dude, we're talking about everything from music to movies to mindset, whatever comes across our crawl.
And I've got some of all of that to talk about this episode. Yep.
Well, first of all, let's get updated on what's going on. I'm sure you're just going to say you're working.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I am so relieved right now because June's upon us, and I've got a little reprieve because it's been back to back for me. Last week, I did a back-to-back, two-day courses back-to-back in Western Tennessee at Yeager's Range, and it was hot as balls. I mean, it was freaking hot. By Friday, I started Tuesday, Wednesday, one course, Thursday and Friday the next. By Friday, I was smoked. I mean, wiped out. It's funny though, when it's hot, people will bitch about it's hot, and I'll hear people say that they'd rather be cold than hot.
Really?
Like, there's a person who doesn't work outdoors all freaking year long, because when you're in Ohio, let's say in April, and it's 35 degrees outside, and you wake up in your hotel room, and it's cold out, and you hear that little bitty sting gang rain. on the window, and you're thinking, man, I've got to be out in this all freaking day long. You shut down. When you got the trifecta: cold, wind, wet. And that first drip of water goes down the crack of your ass when your Gore-Tex is no longer functional. People shut down. The phalanges are no longer working. Their brain isn't working right. And they're looking at me with dead eyes. And all I'm doing is feeding caviar to a hog. In the heat, you could seek shade and you could kind of adjust the pace. And it sucks, but you're not going to shut down.
No, you can't complain about heat. I mean, I grew up in Texas, so that's just the way it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's been hot here. This heat wave has sucked, but could endure. But the cold and the wet.
All right, so you've been rocking it, and you're about to take now. Reprieve is a relative term,
right? Meaning I'm still going to work 7 days a week here in June. And I've got only 2 courses, and they're pretty light. But I've got some time. I can catch up on chores and all my correspondence and all my admin bullshit and everything. And I'm gonna take Charlotte in my GTO. Take it into my buddy. I got a complete front end OEM rebuild kit, and then springs all the way around. Bring her up to the original stance.
Wow.
Yeah, third. I'm gonna bring her in and get that done. I'm looking forward to it. But just stuff like that.
I was walking in, and there was looked like a title on top of Charlotte in the car.
On top of the GTO.
With a dollar bill on top. I said, dude, somebody's buying Charlotte for $1?
Not hardly.
You did some other exchanges with vehicles, but I thought, damn, he's selling the car? No way. Okay, so for me, same thing. I work. I don't do the traveling to the level that Mac does. I did go up to Rhode Island, I don't know, about 3 weeks or so ago. Saw Death Angel and Overkill.
Oh, right, yeah.
That was cool.
Overkill, man. Damn, they're good. How did they sound?
They sounded fantastic. They always do. That is a solid band, live and albums, and that's hard to achieve when you're as dated as they are. But I think it was 24 albums or something they put out.
Yeah,
I mean, damn, that's how they stay alive, man.
Yeah,
that's a road hog band,
man. They are. Oh, damn, man. Oh, I just rekindled my love affair with them last year. Pulled out a bunch of CDs. I was like, oh, my God, these guys are so freaking good.
They're just straight up old school Jersey boys and love. I mean, these are some of the founders of, contemporary thrash metal, man.
A lot of these guys, as they're getting older, they're sounding better. Yeah. I mean, like I saw Priest twice last year, and Maiden and Megadeth's back in the studio right now, bro. That's right. Megadeth. Back in the studio.
That's another band that also does not cease to write. And the other one that my lady and I are real good friends with is the Death Angel guys.
Yeah.
And they just came out with a new album. It doesn't release, I think, till the end of the month, next month. But we heard it on the bus. And then, in fact, I'm going to talk to one of them about the album here in July. But, dude, it was great, man. But they put out, I mean, just in the last few years, 3 or 4 albums. I mean, that's output. Testament's the same way.
Yep. Testament's another band that's
they great. Sound great.
Yep. Yeah. We say it always kills me that Testament and or Overkill isn't part of like the big four.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when, it's kind of like Anthrax. I mean, they do things like the bigger bands tend to be a little slower in the output as far as music.
Right.
Because they have a little more they can rest on and not have to tour as much. Yeah. The other bands that have been around just as long as they have to work their asses off, lots of touring.
Yep.
And we're in that season now. It's the summertime, so that's when all the big festivals are, especially in Europe. And man, dude, again, I keep seeing stuff from Europe. It is so much more metal over there.
Yeah, that's where Lamb of God's touring right now in Europe.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, they just played I think it was Boston with Amon Amarth and
nice.
Lamb of God. Lamb of God, Amon Amarth, that Slayer show.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
But yeah, Slayer's still doing their farewell thing.
Yep.
You guys going or what?
Right.
That stage show, though, dude.
Yeah.
That is immense, man. That thing looks so freaking killer.
It's good. It's dark, demonic, just bloated with energy.
That's metal.
Yeah.
So just as a reminder, this may be University of Badassery, but we are going to be talking a lot about metal music. Yep. Back Mac was playing guitar when I came in to the house today. Saw a Fender Strat on here, vintage.
Mm-hmm. Yep, bought that thing in, I think it was 97 during the 100 or 50 year anniversary. I don't know. It was in the Delta Flight magazine. Mm-hmm. And I went, oh, man, I would love to have an American icon like that. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do with it because I can't play, but I figured it out.
Yeah, you played several classics while I was here setting up for the podcast. But anyway, again, thank you to our good friend Metal Mike for his music and the intros and outros. Let me drop a little URL action on our listeners to keep up with what's going on with the University of Badassery. Go to theuniversityofbadassery.com. You got to have the in that URL. And, of course, to keep up with Mac, that is at TMax Inc., TMACSINC, on Instagram, and then tmaxinc.com, his website, and me, metalmotivation.com, and at Metal Motivator on, what do you call it, Mac? Insta
shizzle.
Insta shizzle. That's Mac's version of Snoop Dogg.
Yep.
All right. So, Mac, you were telling me some stuff. You got some talking points.
Yeah, I'm kind of all over the map. They'll probably emerge sequentially as we're chewing the fat. Hey, but one of them I wrote up here. I heard a song the other day I've never heard before. One of them I sent you, the Dio tune.
Yeah.
Dio and the
Rods.
And the Rods.
Yeah.
I was like, damn, man, that's one of the best Dio songs I've ever heard.
Yeah, it's badass.
But another one, Wasp, The Horror.
I can't remember if I know what that is or not.
Yep, I'm going to have to play it for you after this.
Definitely, dude. I love Wasp.
Yep.
As we'll find out here later on.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, dude. How'd you come across the Dio tune?
XM series.
Really?
Yep. It was just on, I think, Ozzy's Boneyard.
Okay.
I was like, what the hell is this, man? Why haven't I ever heard this tune?
Right. Yeah. For the longest time, ever since, I always tell people my favorite three-piece of all time, and I'm talking, I know who Motorhead is, I know who Rush is, etc. My favorite three-piece of all time is the Rods from New York. David Feinstein, Carl Kennedy, and Gary Borodinero, how you say his last name. And I got turned on to them when I was just a wee little lad who went to visit family in New York for the summer from Texas, and cousin got us tickets to the Number of the Beast tour at the Palladium in Manhattan.
Cool.
I went there and I was right up front. I stood 10 feet from Dave Murray. That's because it's the Palladium. It's not a big place, and they weren't that big yet.
Right.
But I don't know anything about opening bands and who's on the bill. I just know we're going to see Iron Maiden, and I'd never seen Iron Maiden before, so I was not anticipating when Eddie came out.
Right.
I didn't know that because there's no internet. There's no, unless you saw that in a magazine.
Yeah.
And in 1982, 83, dude, it just wasn't. It
So
wasn't.
you went prior Bruce.
Yeah.
You're right on.
No. This was Bruce. This was the Number of the Beast tour.
Number of the Beast tour, right?
But it was just after they had finished, so I didn't know who was who. And Eddie came out, and it flipped me out. But what really kicked my ass was the opening band. This three-piece comes out and just raw as hell, and they're called the Rods. And so I immediately went out and bought the albums that they had. There was two out. The first one just self-titled, The Rods. The second one called Wild Dogs. You got to hear that album. There's a tune you'd love, and the next one I think called in the Rods called Hurricane, and he's just singing about a muscle car, dude.
Nice.
You love that tune.
All right.
But it's headed up by David Feinstein. His cousin is Ronnie James Dio.
Right.
And they were in because I think David used to be in the band Elf.
Mm-hmm.
And so, anyway, he got, before Dio died, he got his cousin to come in and sing the track that you're talking about on that last album that they did. No. It was long before. It was before that last album. But badass, man.
Yeah.
And he's I showed you the picture. He kind of looks like him.
Somebody's going to ask, do you know what the name of that tune was? I could take a picture of it. Because somebody's going to ask.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, sorry, bro. We didn't bring it up. This isn't it. Oh, I deleted it.
You didn't delete.
Oh, yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. But I sent you a text.
Right.
So I'll just look up that. And
So anyway, those two are cousins. But the thing about that particular era, and I always say this, that they tend to get bands like the Rods or Riots or Anvil or Exciter kind of get lost in the discussions about what was happening in metal at the time because they were not a part of the new wave of British heavy metal.
The Code.
The Code.
Yeah. Dude, this freaking tune. Holy mackerel. That's good shit.
Yeah. And it sounds like a Dio tune.
Yeah.
Sounds like like a Heaven and Hell.
Yeah. And he's real deep in the lyrics.
Right.
You know. Anyway, The Code. You got to check that one out.
Check that out
Woo!
for sure. And for anybody who's
Crank it
interested,
up to 11.
coming June 19th, 2019, the Rod's new album, Brotherhood of Metal. You know what? I love it because if you go back to even Metallica's songs, early Anthrax songs, they actually sang about heavy metal.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
They say the lifestyle, wearing, get your leathers and your spikes.
Yeah.
Heads are bobbing all around. It's hotel tonight. You know what I mean? It was about the lifestyle. And I tell you what, man, I'm telling you folks, because again, this goes back to what me and Mac were talking about offline. A lot of guys, and we appreciate the whole badass attitude and being a dude and masculinity and all that stuff. But man, without metal, I mean, it's just metal puts a different style on it. So it's not just serious to where it leads to gloominess. There's a way to channel aggression. There's a way to channel frustration. There's a way to channel, it's like your soundtrack, man. Your soundtrack. It's the soundtrack of badassery.
Yeah.
You can't do that with Garth Brooks.
Nope.
You know what I mean?
Nope. Welcome to cool. That's what I tell people when I crank it up. Welcome to cool.
It's so true. In fact, there was somebody who wrote it again the other day and said, thanked us for turning them on to a lot of metal and a couple of bands that we've mentioned on the podcast before. So I'm glad you did that because people
right
will be asking.
Yeah.
Well, if so good, then
Yeah.
tell us the track.
Tell us what track.
Tell us the track, know-it-alls.
Yeah. Yep.
But anyway, again, being here on the University of Badassery podcast, the objective here is mindset, attitude, all of it. But I think what's on my heart and mind today is this concept of totalism, that it's a total outlook. It's a total mindset that includes everything, that we're not separating any area of life from the mindset. Everything, it's universally applied. Because again, I think people get into this trap where they take their shit too seriously, they take their life too seriously, and there just isn't this balance. There's not a balance. And because what happens is then you don't apply that, you're applying the seriousness just to one thing like training or work or whatever, and you're not applying it to other stuff. You neglect your kids, right, for example. Yep. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean you got to be like dead serious with your kids, but you're not serious about your kids, so you're not really doing much of anything. You're letting, TV or something babysit them.
Yeah, people are forgetting to live. We talked about that earlier with that guy that I wrote. He had some issues. He was getting surgery, and I told him that he'd be fine, and that he was going to live. And when you do live, go ahead and live, man. Go ahead and live. Yeah, I worked my freaking ass off, but man, I love to live.
You said, the way you said it was so cool because here's a guy, again, facing surgery. And so Mac was giving him some heads up because Mac's faced surgery and these kind of setbacks himself physically. And he said, listen, recovery is going to suck, but you're going to live.
And when you do, live.
Dude, that's huge because people, the past is this cassette that never seems to go away. It's a constant playback of whatever happened. People don't want to let go of that. I think in some cases people have like an identity thing. They identify that gives them the position to be a victim. It gives them a justification for being a dick,
Right.
you know, for mistreating other people or whatever, because you can always say, well, you know, look what happened to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had shit so bad. Woe is me.
Yeah.
Man, those people are toxic, bro.
Yeah, dude, it's not a healthy thing to be and to do. If you're dealing with something like that, if you know, can't seem to reconcile the past, then I know we've said on this podcast before, the best way to get over the past is to create a future that looks like payback for the past, you know? So in other words, had nothing bad ever happened to you, what kind of future would you have lived?
Yeah, right.
Well, then go ahead and live it, because there's nothing technically that's stopping you. It's not a, you know, you don't need a permission slip, number one. If you do, here's your permission slip from the professors of the University of Badassery. Feel free to go live your life. Right?
Yeah.
That's kind of weird, though, dude, isn't it? That people feel like they almost need permission. And in a way, it kind of manifests where I remember James Hetfield talking about this in the Lemmy documentary, where he said, Lemmy, for me, was the okay sign.
Huh.
You know what
Nice,
I mean?
yeah.
That you can do that,
Right.
and it's okay. You know what I mean? Because he did it.
Right.
Then it's the okay sign. And people may be looking at you like that, man. You know what I mean? That, you know, Mac, can you do that? Can you talk can you talk to people like Mac does in the Douche Show
Right.
segments?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Can you do that? Yeah, you can do it. You might not do it to the level that he doesn't unless you can back it up. But
It's a real art form.
it's an art form. And so, you know, but people do get into that place where they feel like, you know, they need somebody to say it's okay, that you're not out of the will of the universe by trying stuff, by doing things, by give it a shot, man.
Yeah, I've told people, and I can't remember my entire speech. I would have to be in the here and now. But when they're looking for permission, I said, don't ask me for permission to do this better, to be better, to live. Ask yourself for permission, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just ask yourself.
Yeah. Are you the runner of your life? Are you the governor of your life? Are you the Dominion agent in operation here, set out to make the world a better place? I did a little clip on this the other day, just talking about how, you know, on occasion over the years that I've done this, you'll get somebody who writes in and says, well, in fact, I did a whole series called Who Are You Anyway? You know, and so from my coaching group, I want people to answer that question, because we say that, right?
Right.
Who are you anyway? Or who do you think you are? Or you see somebody do something, you say to your buddy, well, who is that guy?
Yeah, right.
Well, I'm not asking for a name.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't care what his name is. I want to know what
identity.
Yeah, identity. So what it justifies the actions,
Right.
whether good or bad, you know? So I think people need to answer that question for themselves. Who are you? You know? And so I said the way you're going to answer that question is by understanding your place, your potential, and therefore your purpose. So your place would be, where are you placed? People are like, I just can't find myself, or I don't know what I'm. Okay, well, let's start with location. Location is the easiest thing to establish, right? Somebody gets lost. What's the first thing we want to know? Where are you?
Right.
Because from there we can get you to somewhere else. So that's the first thing, is location. It's the easiest thing to establish. Always, if you're ever confused about anything in life, emotionally, psychologically, no matter what it is, always start with absolutes. Even if it's just 2 + 2 = 4.
Sure thing.
Just to remind yourself that there's some sure shit in this world. You know what I mean?
Right.
That math, we are not going to wake up tomorrow and the sun's not going to shine,
Right.
or plants aren't going to grow, or a square is going to have 5 sides.
Right.
It's freaking true. So let's start with an absolute, which is your placement in life. Look to if you want to know where you're supposed to be, just figure out who's supposed to be on your right and who's supposed to be on your left. So like you were in the military, you know, you
Right.
knew what your place was.
Yep. Bro, and then, you know, we got to pick and choose that, who's to our left and who's to our right out here, you know, and you got to choose wisely.
Yeah. So what I told you, I said, listen, look at the community. So that means family, that means friends, that means work, whatever your social circles are, that's your placement in life. If those are all negative,
Right.
then that may mean you need to change your place. Okay. But it also may mean, if you're a super strong person, that you've got to stay there and bring change.
Right.
or your placement in life, everybody around you super positive and supportive. Well, don't get laxed into ease. Your challenge is, because of those resources around you, take everybody up a notch.
Yep.
So that's telling you then potential and purpose, just starting with your place. So who are you anyway? That's who you are.
Yeah.
Start with where you are, because Mac has talked a little bit about it earlier today, where life can really change for guys who are in your line of work, when you get out.
Yeah. Yeah. And it to me, it was mind blowing. But then again, as I reflect, I mean, I was almost there. The harder you struggle with it, or not the harder you struggle with it, the less you accept it, that something's fucked up, the deeper the quicksand gets.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, when I reflect on guys who like either committed suicide or had some really bad problems, and I think, how in the hell can that happen? I was like, well, shit, it almost happened to me. So, because I almost went down that rabbit hole. It's close.
Isn't that funny how you get a lot of people in life searching for purpose, right? Searching for meaning, searching for, they're kind of dressing up their everydays to be more meaningful so they can have that purpose in life. You got a guy like yourself and your teammates, the guys you served with, who come out of something that is freaking infused with context, purpose, meaning. It's like, the masculine outlook. It's like the difference between, chick flicks and a guy movie, right? Chick flick is always about the reconciliation of a relationship.
Right.
And a dude movie tends to be very clear distinction between good and bad.
Yep.
There's going to be something won in the end. There's a very clear opposition.
Right.
And hopefully a sufficient body count. Right. That's it.
And a lot of explosions.
So that's a guy movie.
Yep.
And there might be some friendship, brotherhood type stuff in there, but that's about the extent of it. So you take somebody from that line of work where your whole life, where there's enemies, and you're preparing for enemies, and you bear the emblem of a country on your shoulder every day, and the context of your life is just fueled with that. You can't escape it for the most part, right? You see it everywhere. And then it's not there anymore. You're proud of the service, however you feel about it when you get out, but that's gone.
Yep.
And so now it's like, who's the enemy, and
right.
What
Yeah.
what plans are we looking at?
Yep.
What do we need to navigate.
And then so you lose a sense of purpose and meaning. And to me, that was the hardest part. I still miss it. Man. It's been a while since I retired, but I still miss the hell out of it. But I'm very satisfied. I'm doing. I feel good about what I am doing because I'm doing something bigger than just myself. So I have purpose and I have meaning and I have drive because I see the results. They're almost tangible. I can almost hold them in my hand. So, so I'm in a much better place now than when I first retired.
Well, let me break it down a little more by interrogating you for a second here.
Bring it.
So
stay in my circle.
You're coming out of the military. You first did corporate stuff. Okay. And obviously that's, get busy as soon as you can, make money, etc. You're working institution people in there that they're not your hires, you're not your customers, so to speak. I'm sure you can find a semblance of meaning there, but you're transitioning, which is technically transitioning is not a word, but I've never met a noun I couldn't verb. You know what I'm saying?
Right on.
Transitioning. So you don't have where you were to be confident in, and you don't know where you're landing.
Right.
So you're kind of like in that middle thing. So do you feel like that greater purpose that you're serving now kind of unfolded in front of you? In other words, it's not like you came screaming out of
there's no doubt. It definitely unfolded. I didn't wake up one morning with an epiphany. It didn't happen overnight. It definitely unfolded in front of me. And, excuse me, and I wouldn't undo anything that I did. Even though I had a lousy time in corporate America, it's part of who I am. And part of the growth of that human being. It's how I became what I became. It sucked though, bro, you know, but yeah, it developed over time. Nothing happened overnight. And once I saw it, then I just nurtured it and allowed it to grow. You know, I let it develop.
Yeah. This is a huge lesson. Because I think a lot of people, Mac, can look at you and say, he knew exactly what he was going to do. All this is going according to his evil master plan.
Right. Now, you know, I was talking to a guy last week in Tennessee, SOE Tactical, and because he had some hard times in his life, and now he's his own guy. And I remember telling him, and sometimes I forget about this. So retired 05, 2010, after 4+ years working for a corporation, doing, you know, the gun thing, training thing, but it wasn't the same because I got laid off. It's like, what the, you know, you get, and then, so real dark day for me. And then 3 years into running my own business, it's starting to go good. 2013 sequestration. I lose 6 months of work. So I am now back to freaking zero. And then I'm working for a promoter. 2017, everything's going good. Back to zero because he takes off with everybody's money, the guys that were under him. So back to zero, 2017. So, you know, I've had those extreme ebbs and flows.
Right.
So right now I'm back on top of the heat, but I'm all by myself. You know, I'm all alone, which means I'm working my freaking ass off. Yeah. But man, my worst day working on my own is better than my best day in corporate America.
Wow. So describe what it is about that. What are some of the things? Because like I said, man, it's a lot more work. But what is it that's on the other side of the scale that's offsetting that?
Well, I mean, I like to be able to control my own destiny. Having nobody else has the responsibility of feeding me. Right. You know, I am completely self-reliant, which is it's exciting because it's because your comfort level is, you know, you don't have a comfort level. You never have a comfort level. Right. You never sit back and in the white and going, oh, today I think I'll just take the day off. You know, I plan a day off like months in advance, plan that day off. So I like that feeling of being uncomfortable and always having to think about what else can I jam in the pipeline? Right. Because if I'm sleeping 7 hours, you know, I might be able to dial that back to 6.5, or, you know, I come home a little bit earlier, or leave a little later before I go get a pint. Right. Something like that. I mean, because there is time, which, by the way, is part of my work. Right. No, really. I mean, going out and socializing like that, it's important. It's important to to nurture the person or the product that I have become, to go out, talk to people, to be a social creature, because we're human beings and we're social creatures. So I like to do that a couple times a week. Yeah.
No, this I'm telling you, this is gold right here. What we're talking about right now, I should charge every listener for what we're talking about, because this is the key to independence. I mean, you're going to hear a lot of people talk about entrepreneurship, and they're going to talk about the mechanics of business, and that's all important. We all need to understand that. But what we're talking about here is the core and the essence of self-governing people, the liberty that gets experienced when you totally invest in yourself. I like to say it this way: if you're telling me it's up to me, you're giving me good news.
Right.
For a lot of people, you tell them it's up to you.
Dude, and they're freaking out because they don't know how to handle it. They can't compartmentalize that kind of pressure. Right. Oh, I have to make a decision on my own. Oh, man, to me, it's the best feeling ever.
It is.
And even, you know, I was just thinking, like this morning, I fielded some emails, and there was an opportunity, you know, work opportunity. I've got no time for it, but I didn't tell them no. Right. I said, hey, can you ping me back in a couple months again? Yeah. And just to see where I'm sitting at that point in time. Because I don't want to ever say, there's times when they're ridiculous requests and I just say no. But, you know, if it's something that I may think about entertaining, I'm not going to say no. Yeah. I'm going to put it in the, I'm going to file it. Right. And I'm going to ping him back and say, hey, hit me back in a couple months and see what see how my flow is, and maybe we could make this thing happen.
Yeah, the more stuff you put, the more lines you put out, right, the more fish you're probably going to catch.
Yep.
And I've had this conversation several times with my lady, because her dad, a remarkable man. He was like lieutenant commander in the Navy, but he was in the Navy for 20. He had a plan. He had it planned out for 75 years of his life. He was going to do 25 years in the Navy, which he did.
Yep.
Then he was going to go for 25 years as a school teacher, and he taught industrial design. Remember those classes, dude? That was a bomb back then when we went to school. Dude.
Oh yeah.
When we were using jigsaws.
Oh really? No.
Yeah.
Not only jigsaws, but working metal. I remember, learning how to temper steel.
Yeah.
And you're making your own tools. You're making like hammers and chisels, and hey, you got to temper this right, otherwise it's going to be too brittle.
Yeah.
Do they do that in school anymore?
I don't know, but the teachers you always had in like industrial design and whatnot they still had that, because we were young. I mean, the 70s, so they still were had those 50s kind of haircuts and whatnot. So they were like dudes. They were men's men. Like my art teacher from elementary school was a professional bow hunter.
Oh, cool.
So he would take us. He took the whole class like overnight camping, and we got to shoot bow and arrow and go visit a taxidermist. And
no kidding,
it was
nice.
Killer, man. Yeah. Anyway, it's got nothing to do with my story, but that's a good footnote. So he did 25 years as an industrial art teacher, and then 25 years, which is he's in now, this 25th year. He's 90 years old, as a Catholic church deacon. Which is a very significant.
Oh, yeah.
You go to a Baptist church, a deacon just drives the bus.
Right.
Catholic church,
right.
He's like a priest, man.
Yeah.
So he had to go 4 years of seminary and all that stuff. So here's 25 years as a Navy commander, and then the teacher, and then the priest. So he's got pensions out the wazoo, and he's very frugal, and, puts all his money away, and insurance policies. So very smart in terms, I get that. It is an institutional approach, though, to things. But it's the same thing. So she kind of will get a little cross-eyed because of the way I talk. Because when I talk about what you just said about getting out there and being amongst people, I say it's important for me to get out there and do things because relationships are capital. It's capital.
Right.
What do you mean by that?
Right.
It's capital.
Yep.
I don't know when it'll pay off or if it'll pay. It doesn't matter.
It's not what you know, it's who you know.
It's who you know. And I said, so I have to constantly, you say it as keep filling the pipeline. I say I got to keep reinforcing the ground underneath my feet. So I have to keep investing in seizing opportunities and looking at new things and whatever. But if you start doing that, which is what you did after the corporate thing went belly up, you started to see, well, the more I give attention to what I do well, following my interest, my bliss, as the mythologist Joseph Campbell says, things start to open up of themselves. It's that apostolic mantle thing again. You start to see it literally happen in front of you. Like, okay, well, when people ask me, what's your future plans? I said, my future plans are 2 words: seize opportunities. So I always liken it to like a surfer. You take a surfer. Well, he can believe in him or herself all they want. Okay, and it's important to believe in yourself. Good to have a positive self-image. I'm all for that, totally. But if your ass is not in the ocean every day, because people think that old Hollywood myth of you got to be in the right place at the right time. Right. Well, the right place happens at the right place at the right time happens several times a day if you're prepared and your head is on a swivel.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It happens a lot if you just keep your ass out there. And I appreciate people like that. I see some people who are hustlers. Man, they're just at every event. They're at every, it's, in fact, I need to hit him up because we're out in here. The Roger guy, tall guy with the big white beard who we always see at the pub.
Yeah.
We're friends on Facebook. Dude, he's everywhere.
Yep.
I mean,
he's hopping and popping.
Everywhere. But he's already introduced me to several people. And I'll see people.
He knows. He's got a lockbox for his memory too. Is ridiculous. If he meets a guy, he one time he knows his name, he knows his background, he knows everything about him, and he's not a chatty guy.
No,
he listens.
He listens, and I didn't know when we were talking to the Patrick guy who owns the same the Patty's bar. I didn't know
Fayetteville.
I didn't know who he was, whatever. But we ended up, dude. You guys, we were there till 1 a.m. Right. Me, Patty, and
Roger. Yep.
And Roger he'd chime in here and there, but he just said, I just wanted to watch you two talk.
Yeah, right.
But he had it in his mind. He said, I wanted Patty to come out because I knew you guys would be doing your podcast thing. And I'm just like, you know what? He's just thinking, I want to see what happens.
Right. Yep.
I just want to see what happens. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's true, man. I mean, I admire that. And he's a business owner, you know, and of course, that's, you know, everything's, but I tell you what, a guy like that is going to be resourceful. If I start thinking, you know what, I got nothing to do, I'm going to head down to Fayetteville, or I'm going to head down to this part of town and say, you know, who's going to hook me up?
Right.
Roger's going to know a ton of people. And he knows people like just down the road from me, way the hell out in Raleigh. Yeah.
And this isn't because of the interweb. Guys like that are face to face.
He's face to face, man. Yeah. Because everything he is, he's at a location.
Right.
And he's got a selfie with a shit ton of people around him all the time. Male, female, doesn't matter, man. He's got them all. But that's being resourceful. And I think people are not resourceful. And until you get that taste of these possibilities, you know, you're not going to take advantage of everything. And so you have to see that. It doesn't matter where you are. If you follow your bliss, you follow what you're good at, man, dude, the universe starts to open up. People want to help you.
Yeah.
Dude, it's a really amazing thing. So again, for Mac, you weren't, you know, you didn't step out of the military with the next 10 years.
Hell
plan.
No, man. I knew nothing about the outside world, you know? Nothing. Not a freaking thing.
Didn't know anything about Instagram.
Hell no. None of it. Man,
not even MySpace.
Yeah, nothing. Yeah, I mean, well, that stuff was all still fledgling too.
Yeah.
It wasn't everybody had Facebook or something. I didn't even have Facebook.
Yeah.
But I knew nothing about it. So thankfully, even though it sucked to get in that corporate job, it was a foothold.
It was your halfway house.
Yeah, it was purgatory.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it was at least a foothold to the outdoor world where I started making like connections, you know, networking. I started doing that. Started building my Rolodex.
Yeah.
And with the right people.
Right.
And that's important, but getting yourself out there, you know, I think about like when I go out and have a pint at night, I chat with guys. A lot of times it's the same guys, but those guys will bring somebody else, you know, to the party, to the mix. And people are interesting to me. If they're not interesting, they're the wrong people.
Right.
Like if you're with a group of people having a pint and you feel brain cells dying, you know, it happens to me. I say to myself, you know what? I can feel myself getting dumber as I'm sitting here. You're at the wrong table. Yeah. Go find a different table, and chat with somebody. You know, make a connection, and you'll know because reading people and having you know, social skills is freaking huge, man. It's very important.
Be polite, but move the hell on.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, because this is an important time, and you want to be around good, even if it's just fun, food, and fellowship.
Right.
It still needs to be stimulating, whether it's people that are funny, again, people that are interesting. But I want to highlight on this transition thing because I think it's so important, and you're such a great example of this. It reminds me of the story of the Jews when they were in slavery in Egypt for 490 years, and then Moses comes in. And they've got to make this trek across this wilderness before they get to that promised land, which, you know, was the goal and the destiny, and which had been delayed for 490 years as they were in slavery. But they spend 40 years in this wilderness wandering around. Now, technically, based on the landmass, you can look at it on a map, it should have only taken on foot 2 weeks to get across. It took them 40 years.
Right.
And the lesson here is, you know, they left Egypt overnight, having been there for 490 years, but it took 40 years to get Egypt out of them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
And so when we come out of something, we have to recognize that there needs to be, and I love that you use the term purgatory because the root word there is purge.
Right.
You got to purge out of you the past. You got to purge out of you all of those things that are going to be obstructions to the future. I always talk about relationships. I'd say it this way, you know, it's like baggage, right? Well, we call it baggage of the past. Okay, well, what do you do with the baggage of the past? Well, you open up the suitcase, get rid of what needs to be thrown away. If there's anything that needs to be kept, put it in the closet and only wear it when appropriate. Just don't But they want to keep all the suitcases, man.
Right.
They want everything.
Yeah.
And be able to go through and no, you need to have a garage sale or go to the Salvation Army or whatever you got to do and get rid
Hell yeah, man.
of all of that stuff.
My wife and I pride each other on boasting that we are good get-a-ridder-overs.
It's good, dude.
Yeah.
It's. I mean, I'm not hardcore minimalism, but at the same time, man, the older you get, it's like, man, I don't want to, when you're younger, it's like, okay, yeah, you know what, I'm going to get my this and I'm going to
Stuff.
do that. But yeah, but then after you're just like, man, I don't need all of this. So what do you feel like when you came out needed to be, I mean, looking back at it now, needed to be purged out of you?
Well, one of the things is, you could take the guy out of the military, but you can't take the military out of the guy.
Yeah.
So now I wasn't rigid white military.
Right.
I wasn't. I was special ops guy, so I wasn't. Rigid lockstep military guy. Anyway, but I had to. I had to work with a different breed of person.
Okay.
These weren't the people that I was used to working, and I had to develop a whole new level of tolerance for people.
Wow.
And that was, to me, that was a big one. It was like, all right, well, this guy's a piece of shit. But the thing is, I would never in a million years associate with this guy.
Right.
Prior to, in my old life. But now this is where I live.
Right.
He's part of my industry.
Right.
And I need him.
Right.
He's an asset.
Yeah.
So that was a big one there, is I had to develop tolerance and tactfulness, because my tact sucked.
So tactful, not tactical.
Right.
That was the big transition.
Yeah,
I had to go from tactical to tactful.
Yeah. No, really. That was a hard one. Because you could say all the right shit, but it only takes 10 seconds to completely destroy your credibility or what you're selling or the person that you are, by putting your foot in your mouth. So that was a big one. There's a couple.
Let me make a mental note here. You need to write an article called "From Tactical to Tactful."
Yeah.
And just say transitioning to, in other words, going from military to this civilian things that you're doing now. But that's a great example of what I was just talking about in terms of placement.
Right.
Because your situation was you're being placed in an area where you're surrounded by people who are not at the same level. Therefore, it's technically a negative.
Yep.
But it wasn't so much to where you looked at, because you look then at your potential and you say, well, that doesn't mean I need to leave and go back and find just a bunch of hot rods to live with, because I can't. Therefore, my purpose is to use my potential to change the place.
Right.
Right. So for people, again, I really want people to understand transition. I want them to understand this purging process. I want them to understand that they can seize opportunities now. They can invest in themselves. And part of, again, asking and answering the question, who are you anyway, is begin with that placement. And so Mac finds him, say, here's a guy who's high level, right? And he's working with high level dudes. Now he's amongst all of us civilians and proles and uncircumcised Philistines,
troglodytes,
and
Solenterates.
Exactly. So now what does he do? Does he run from this and hide because it's not where he was before? It's because he says, well, these are negative people. Are they going to bring me down? No, you're going to bring them up.
Yep. And I realized, oh man, this is happening. People like my energy. They like that. It resonated well with them. I was like, all right, well, I could exploit that. I could keep that military chunk, that intensity, just dial it back a little bit, and talk to them like a peer.
Yeah. And I think with them, especially knowing, what you've done in your career and things and what you represent now, that's a huge uplift for them, man. It means a lot to them to hear from you, and you get to spend some FaceTime with them. It doesn't matter how long it is. Like you said earlier, it's sometimes just an answer. Yeah. Just something to.
Yeah, you never know how an answer or, your response could impact somebody.
Yeah.
Negatively or positively. So I always try to, even if like I'm answering stuff on the interwebs and answering somebody who's negative, I always answer positively.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, with the douchebags on the interweb, I always hit them with a thanks exclamation point. You know, when they say something real douchey, because you never know. That guy might have some serious freaking issues. You know, he's probably living in his mom's basement, and he's got nothing better to do than troll the interwebs and you know, be a tough guy in his basement with his bag of Cheetos on his lap.
Yeah, and that's a big deal, dude, because I you know, being turned on, I mean, I get the same sort of thing with my metal crowd. Mm-hmm. It's a different kind of thing with more your crowd, the tactical and training guys and whatever. Yeah, I mean, for a lot of them, it just sounds like they never really grew out of high school.
Yeah.
And so everything is about that for them. And, you know, what we need today, ladies and gentlemen, is not that. We need leadership, and we need for us to be above being reactionary. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to react out of what I was. I want to act with intention to create desired outcomes out of who I want to become.
Yeah.
You know, and that means I'm putting on a new person. I'm trying to be something new. I want to exercise leadership. And if you're going to be a true leader, then you can't be moved by the stuff, the triviality that goes on around you, being blown about by every single wind that blows. There was an old joke that used to say that was some troops were marching down the road, and the one of the privates was bad mouthing the general. Mm-hmm. Had no idea the general was just right behind him. So he's going on and on and on and on, and then somebody goes, "Dude, look behind you." He looks behind you and he sees the general. Mm-hmm. And the general says, "It's all right, son. Just be glad I'm not a captain." Right?
Yeah.
Because the captain's got something to prove, right?
Right. Yeah.
General's got nothing to prove.
Right. Yeah.
What are you, dude? It's like, whatever, man. But I think a lot of people are like that. They're captains, man.
Yeah.
And
right. Yeah. It's so funny because none of that stuff bothers me anymore. I guess I'm that general.
Yeah, you're the general now.
Because you know, I'll field douchebaggery, you know, on the interwebs, and I don't get rattled one freaking bit. Yeah. Not one bit. Sometimes I laugh, you know, but not at all. I don't care.
Yeah, it's, you know,
because I know because I have a clean conscience.
Yeah.
You know, I know it. I know I'm doing the right thing. I know I'm not, you know, I'm not slimy. I like to say, man, I'm so freaking clean. You could eat off of me. So
Rebecca's like, ting, like, she's done it.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, it's, you know, we've sort of created this tenor at this point with, you know, the social media thing. Because anybody can just, like you talk about keyboard commandos, anybody can say whatever. Yep. Because in all likelihood, you're never going to meet this person. But again, that just tells me that people, for the most part, live with no greater sense of purpose. Mm-hmm. You know, there's no Sparta that they fight for to the last breath, you know. And, you know, when I was a younger dad and my boys, you know, were younger, you know, my youngest might spill his juice or something in the kitchen, but I didn't watch the older one smack the crap out of him.
Right.
Because he did it. No, he helps him clean it up and, you know, pats him on the back and sends him back outside because you're big brother. It's what you do, man, you know? And so if you have, and, you know, talking to the listeners, if you walk in this sort of awareness that you are called to this purpose, in fact, we are anointing, knighting, and appointing you. This is your official permission slip to go be a hero, right? Mm-hmm. Go be a Batman. Go be a general. Go be a leader. Go be a world changer. Go be a change agent. Whatever it is you want to call it, go do and be something with your gift, talents, abilities, what's your place in life. And when you figure out what that is, maybe you're surrounded by negative people, like I said before, and you need to get away from it because your potential is just weak right now. So you need to get away from some of these bad influences in your life. Other times you're like Mac, where you're stepping out of that great, you know, culture that he used to be in. Now he's kind of dealing with mediocrity, surrounded by mediocrity. It doesn't mean he bails. It means it taps into his potential to say, I have the potential to change this. Therefore, he now understands his purpose.
Right.
And so if you need direction in life, man, it doesn't have to necessarily all be career-based. Maybe you can't make that call right now career-wise.
Right. I'm not sure if this is true, but I like to think that we're all destined to be good, really good at something.
Right.
So you can't give up that search, that quest to figure out what it is. Even if you're stuck in a job, you're a slave to the grind.
Right.
Never shut down, the doorways to opportunity.
True.
Yeah, keep them open and keep peeking through them, and then stick a foot through every once in a while. See what's out there. Don't just accept the mediocre.
Yeah, I think there's a logic to the old symbol of this, the salesman who, remember that when we were kids, knocking on the door and you try to shut the door on him, and what does he do?
Puts a foot in the
door.
door.
Puts a foot in the door. So it's a phrase we use now, right? Mm-hmm. Foot in the door. Sometimes that's all you need. What that means is a opening that you can exploit.
Right.
And you have to be able to recognize it. I'm getting real Bible today, but there's another instance in the Old Testament where
I like when you get Bible.
The preacher and the commando. And this was with the prophet Elijah, and he was running from King Ahab, who wanted to kill him, and Elijah had his prophet's assistant with him all the time, so they're running the hills trying to evade capture. And he had prophesied like 3.5 years earlier that there would be a drought as judgment on the land because of the evil king and evil people. And it happened. So there was no rain for 3.5 years. And then God spoke to him and said, it's time for me to send rain upon the earth. But even though God told him that was what was going to happen, Elijah had to go up and pray for it. So he goes up to the top of the mountain. There's not a cloud in the sky. And he's praying his heart out. He prays and he tells his servant, go look at the sky. Nothing. Comes back again. And finally, I think like the 7th time, the servant goes out and comes back and he says, sir, all I see is the cloud the size of a man's hand. And Elijah goes, go to Ahab, for I hear the sound of an abundance of rain. So all he needed to see was that little cloud, the cloud the size of a man's hand. Do you have eyes to see? Because that took faith.
Right.
Because he prayed 7 times and nothing happened. It's like David with he had the 5 stones. Mm-hmm. Somebody says, well, why 5 stones? That's faith. How could that be faith? Faith would be, well, God's going to do it. No, God's using you to do this. So 5 stones means if I don't hit him with the first one,
right,
I got 5 more. In other words, I know he's coming down. Mm-hmm. I don't know on which stone he's coming down.
Right.
I just know he's coming down. And I'm this conduit between this crazy, mysterious universe with this purpose and direction and what happens here in physical time, space, history. And so that's where we are. We're like Elijah. We're like David. And if you see with that eye of vision, with that apostolic mantle kind of outlook, then you're going to see the cloud the size of a man's, which means everybody else in the room is going to miss it. Mm-hmm. You'll see it.
Right.
Because you hunger and you thirst for opportunity because you know your life depends on it. You've trained it. You've developed these inner eyes. You see things that other people don't. And so, we can talk about business stuff all day, but this is the mindset, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, no, I love it when you go Bible. It's good. I always learn something.
But you remember you were raised in this stuff, right?
Yeah. Yep.
You're a lot.
It's been a long time. Bam.
But these, there again, I think there's a lot of people, brother, that are that I think are stuck right now. I think they're stuck in a rut. And that's tough. You're going down a road, and I'm sure this was really bad back in. I grew up in a neighborhood called Ossining, New York. It's where it's only famous now because it's where Sing Sing Prison is. Right. But it's a gorgeous little town. It's been there since the might go back to the 17th century, but I follow the page, for the town, and tons of footage. Pictures and things from the 18th century. So horse and buggy carriages and all that kind of stuff. So the roads are dirt. and you get rain after a while, and everybody with their carriages start to create ruts. And that's tough.
Yep.
You think you can't get out of that. Messes your whole thing up. And people do. They get stuck. The number one thing I hear, Mac, from people for the last 10 years that I've been doing mental motivation is they'll say, you help me get out of a rut.
Right on.
Or they'll say, you help me get unstuck and start taking things back. I bet you've had the exact same.
Yep. All the time. Yeah, it's great. It's very fulfilling.
It is.
I love it. Yep.
Yeah, because, you're not here. I'm not here, or any other buddy who teaches or mentors or coaches. You're not here to do everything for somebody.
No.
They've got all the power. They've got all the life. They've got all the potential, all the enabling they could possibly need. Sometimes you just need somebody just kind of.
Yeah, not everything, just something.
Yeah, they just need a little brain punch.
Yeah.
Brain punch.
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Max dishing out the brain punches. Yep. Now you're doing this also though in the courses. It's when you do your courses, right? just.
No, I mentor and lead during the courses, even though I'm teaching stuff. I think it's, one's demeanor, his style, his delivery are very important to encourage and to motivate and all that. Because I'm not just imparting knowledge, but like wisdom.
Right.
What little of it I have, and folks appreciate that.
Yeah.
Best compliments I get are those. Not, hey, I learned a lot of stuff, or man, you could really shoot well. It's, dude, your message, how you teach, and how you inspire me.
Yeah.
That's the best compliment.
Yeah, and that's hard to replicate. And so for somebody who wants to be an instructor or a podcast host or whatever you want to do, you got to have that likability, like Mac talks about all the time. You got to be that total person. You have to be a presence,
right?
That can be felt. You ever had that where, like you say, well, you could feel it when they walked in the room. There are, I don't know what the physics are to all of that. What the molecules start to do when certain people walk in a room. But I guarantee you can, whether positive or negative, you can always take it back to how that person sees themselves in the world.
Right.
And it's both, not just how you see yourself, how you see the world. Because if you don't, because you hear this, people saying life is unfair and class system and the government needs to do this and I hate this, whatever. Everything is external. Everything is, they're the true environmentalists.
No, none of it's their fault.
No.
None of it. No. Yeah, I just achieve separation from that because those people typically, they don't even want an assist. They're real happy with being miserable.
Right.
And I achieve separation from them.
Do you feel like it's an identity thing for them to be miserable?
Yeah.
They got to find some comfort in it to stay there.
Yep, they're good at it. That's what they do.
Yeah, I would say it this way: if you don't change what you claim to hate, then there's something about it you still love.
Yeah, right.
And so, what is it about it? Somebody may be in that situation right now, and they keep talking about how they want to change it, and they talk to people about it. So I'll tell them, if you keep talking about things to other people and you don't change, then you want sympathy. You don't want advice.
Yep.
You don't want counsel. You don't want to change anything. But to just understand that, as we sit here and speak, Mac, seconds of the only life we've got are burning away.
Yep.
And we're getting less. We now have less seconds in our life, less minutes than we did before. It's going, and we can't stop it.
Nope.
We can't change it. There's nothing we can do about it. So the only thing we can do then is say, okay, well, we're going to maximize this time, live our best life, leave a footprint.
And don't let the old man in.
Dude, hey, you know what? Dude, that's a freaking great way to say it because there again, that's a Bible thing where the apostle said, put off the old man and put on the new man.
Right on.
Created to be in a new image, man. And the word there, put off, that's used in the Greek is like taking off a coat.
Right.
So for some people, it's like, I can't take it off. It's stitched to me. They feel like it is stitched to them. But no, in reality, you could take off the coat, and that's where that mindset thing needs to happen for them. They need to realize that it's possible. So, Mac, you become like an okay sign for some people.
Yep.
These guys. It's just like, wow, man.
All right. I want to be the okay sign. I want to be their Lemmy. Yeah, man. I love it.
Yeah, so they feel like, hey, so I'll bet a lot of guys are living, maybe not to the degree, but they're probably, I bet they're saying and thinking now, every night is Saturday night. Every morning is Monday morning.
Yep. That, man, that's catching on. It's like wildfire.
That's another article you need to write.
Yeah. No, it would be a good. It would be a good one. But there's sound logic in there. You know, in that, and it's catching on. People have said, man, I have adopted that mindset, and it has changed the way I do things and how I look at life and everything.
Badass,
well,
man.
because the seconds thing, I think about that all the time. Like you just said, you know, when we, as we sit right now, this many seconds have gone by. We'll never get those back again. I think about that all the time. Like, man, this is when you look at the span of things and how old the planet is. I mean, our life, our existence here is minuscule. So I try not to look forward to shit that's like a month away.
Yeah.
Because that's a month.
Yeah.
You know, I want to look forward to, you know, what I'm doing right now. And I don't want to anticipate time slipping away.
Right.
Yeah. Right. It's spooky. It's spooky to me. Anyway, that don't let the old man in.
Yeah.
I heard, country singer, is it Toby Keith maybe? Mm-hmm. He was golfing with Clint Eastwood, and he said, "Hey, how do you do it, man? How do you stay?" Because Clint Eastwood's what 90 some,
190 something.
Yeah. And he goes, "You know how I do it? I don't let the old man in."
Woo!
And I guess, but this is a great one too. And I said this yesterday because people were talking about age, and I guess Toby Keith wrote a song. And the title is something like, if you didn't know when you were born, how old would you be? You know, if I woke up right now from a coma and I had no idea my birth day, year, how old would I be? I don't know. It's a good way to look at things.
I would always say the actual years is not how old I am. What I've lived, learned, experienced. That's
right.
You know, that's how old I am. And how you choose to live.
Right.
Because I know some people younger than you and me who live in like old men. I was telling my kids because we had
because they let the old man in.
Yeah, they let the old man in.
Yeah.
We have neighbors across the street who were clearing trees, you know, over the past few months, and so they came over because they saw these big, beautiful stumps. They're like, "Boy, I would like take one of those over to the backyard." And so they're talking to my son out there who's cleaning up the wood. And they're like, "You guys selling the house?" He's, "Well, my dad's been talking about it, but I don't know." And so he goes and tells me about it. I said, "Sure." Just tell him, "Sure."
Yeah. And
so they're interested now in, you know, in getting this house. But it brought up a conversation just about home ownership and all of these things. And, you know, I said, for me, you know, when I think of retiring or piddling in the yard and that kind of thing, I said, I know it's therapeutic for a lot of people, and I get it. I really do. I get it. To me, it's a sign I'm getting old.
Yeah, man. Yep.
And so I know things have got to be done at the house, and you want things to be nice, but I'm not doing it for therapeutic sake. I'm doing it because, well, that just needs to be done. Mm-hmm. And I don't, because I've got a neighbor to the right of me who, I mean, he does a great job, but he's retired as hell, you know, but he's just always out there piddling and doing those things. Now, he's happy as a lark, right? But for me, because he goes, "Yeah, I retired when I was 57. I'm thinking, dude, I'm an hour and a half from 57.
Right.
You know?
Holy shit.
So that ain't happening,
right.
You know? And so I told my kid, I said, "Man, you know, I said, we got to always keep in mind that we are still fueled by the modern American post-World War II booming of capitalism world. Mm-hmm. Most people did not live like this throughout history. They lived under slavery and war and death and pestilence and starvation and never traveled more than 10 miles
from their
house. And there were no teenagers with attitude, and you had admirals in the freaking Navy, early America, were like 14 years old.
Right.
Is a whole different kind of people. So we live in this, culture of ease. And so we grow up saying, oh, yeah, well, you go to kindergarten when you're 5, graduate when you're 18, you go to college and you do this, and then you retire at 65, and boom. That's why, again, I love the sixth commandment that says, it says, 6 days thou shalt labor. Just that's it. Seventh commandment does not say retire.
Right.
It's just thou shalt labor.
Right.
Okay. When do we stop? Stop ain't in it.
Right.
There is no stopping, because you have this obligation to the sacred duty to yourself, maximizing, all that you are, all that you can be for this purpose greater than yourself, whatever your Sparta is. What is your Sparta? What's the thing you're willing to die for? You're willing to fight insurmountable odds for, that you and your queen, are willing to go to war for, and not accept slavery so that you can play Romeo and Juliet and just stay together, but you're willing to sacrifice marriage, everything. There's got to be something that high. If not, then what's to sacrifice for? You end up with what, like Bon Jovi said, in and out of love. Yep. So your relationships have no meaning, work has no meaning, life has no meaning. Man, you should be drunk with purpose, saturated. Purpose should be woven into you like smoke into your clothes after a fire.
Nice.
You know what I mean? That's the way you should be breathing this sort of stuff. So like Mac and I are talking about how often we do this podcast, and, the great feedback that we get, and, maybe different people would do different things with this, but we're obviously busy people and we're keeping it up. And for right now, it's pretty good for us. We're willing to high five each other over that fact in and of itself. But yeah, I mean, there's opportunities everywhere, because before, me and Mac didn't grow up with each other. I wasn't in the military. We didn't meet each other till just 2 or 3 years ago. But we brought a whole lot of preparation to the day that we met.
Right.
And so it was easy to see opportunity. And the other thing is having a respect for what is right. And the best way to show respect for what is right is the absence of ego. So like when this podcast started, I hit up Mac and I said, hey man, I'm thinking about doing this podcast, and I'm going to call it Metal Excellence. And you know what, dude, you should be the first guest. And you were like, damn right I should. That's exactly what you said. You're like, damn right I should. Yep. And so we did that. And after that, I just thought it went so well. I'm thinking, dude, you need to co-host the podcast. You're like, you know what?
You're right.
Yeah, let's do that. So we do that for a while. And then after a while, I just started to think something's not right.
Right.
And because you were bringing in this different audience, and I said, we need to do something that's a little more general, keeps the same tenor, but general. And so we came up with University of Badassery. And if it were to need any other adjustments, fine.
Right.
Because
so be it.
Because the idea will tell you what it wants. It's a living, breathing thing at this point.
Yeah, allow it to be malleable.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm submitted to, because in other words, University of Badassery becomes like a mini Sparta. T-Mac Sings is like a mini Sparta, right? These are little things that are so fueled with purpose that they're above yourself, because you sacrifice for them. You put in time for them, I drove out here. Mac's taking off time from his day. And of course, we'll hang out and drink beer and stuff like that. But, it's still, it's an investment. It's an investment of time. But we know that on the other side of this is God knows how many people that are saying, dude, when is that next podcast coming out?
Yeah.
And that, where Mac gets to share his heart and mind, we get to get our guests on here, share their heart and mind, then you seeing the histories of people changing. So, I mentioned this couple across the street was asking my son if we were going to sell the house. And what I found out was, because it's a young family, a few kids, and they have these, their parents, the grandparents, who are in Florida, about to retire from what they're doing, and they're chomping at the bit to move up to Carolina to be close to the grandkids. Right. And so they're like, what better place to be than
directly across
the street. So now I've owned this house since 2000. So there's some sentimental shit going on here. But I'm also in my 50s. My kids are grown, and I got a healthy. I don't give a damn just as well. So, I was talking to my son about it, and I said, I just the fact that if I make the decision in favor of this family to say, okay, let the grandparents in, what have I just done to the next years of their life, their kids, the grandkids, that family? How much just those simple logistics for their life, just the fact that the kids can go across, the grandkids can go across the street, you add that up, compound that over time. How much can we affect their history just by letting them take this house that's directly across the street from their kids? Yeah. Life is filled with all that. So every time you're a dick, you know what I mean? You're compounding someone else's, like you said, that person who's kind of an obnoxious whatever online. You don't know what made them necessarily that way. Yep. And you can add to the flame.
Yeah.
Or you can,
I'd rather not. I almost empathize,
Yeah.
To some degree.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what empathy is about, right? Can you put yourself in someone else's shoes? Because like you said, our basic wiring is not to be that way. We growing up in a country of abundance. You don't, unless you're abused or bad situation, nobody grows up pissed off.
Right.
It's a good place to be, right? So why do that? So if you know that the power of shaping somebody's future or adding to it or taking away is in your hand, then man, are you going to, with great power comes great responsibility. That's all I have to say about that, Mac.
Bam. Well said. Love it.
You want to talk about some questions, Mac?
Yeah, man. Chomping at the bit.
As everybody knows, we do Q&A with Mac and CJ. Play the musical intro. Do we have a musical intro for that, Mac? Get the strat out.
I could gin something up.
But I want to thank everybody for sending in questions. If you'd like to, you can always send in questions to the podcast. Go to the direct message at University of Badassery on Instagram. So, University of Badassery episode 5 Q&A. You ready, Mac?
Yes.
Number 1. What are your favorite hair bands?
I love hair bands. I really do. I just now realized I didn't write my favorites down, so I started jotting. But top of my list is Rat.
Okay, yeah.
I don't think they ever made a bad song, and they made a ton of albums. I mean, man, I just love freaking Rat. Skid Row's another one.
Yep.
Love it. I mean, Motley Crue. I mean, granted, they graduated out of hair band era. They lasted a little bit longer. But those are my top 3. I didn't write down 5. But let me think about.
Yeah, it's tough because you got some guys who became hair bands.
Right.
Like for example, I would put like a Whitesnake
right
on the list. But they were technically around before then. They became hair bands.
Shit, Ozzy Osbourne became a hair band.
Hair band. Yeah, because for me, it's my top one is Wasp. Now I would call Wasp a hair band because it was.
They were in that era.
It was L.A. spandex and the whole 9 yards. Just that they were a darker version. Wasp was the band that everybody who was into metal could like.
Man, they had mass appeal.
Everybody gave them, back in my day, you gave the Motley Crues and whatnot crap. Once they got to Theater of Pain, and they saw the Pink and all that, and then they started to become that was then the hair ballad was born with Home Sweet Home and the cover is Smoking in the Boys' Room and that kind of stuff. So it was like, man, forget that. But so because by then now you're three Metallica albums deep, and so Metallica ruined the party for everybody. But Wasp, Rat, because Rat, man, I don't know how you describe Rat because
there was a lot of talent there.
A lot of talent.
Man, with the vocals, there was backup vocals, the guitar work was great, but the songwriting was how they composed the tunes, and none of them are cookie cutter. One doesn't sound like the other. They don't all blend in.
Right. And it wasn't because it would eventually become more Pretty Boy stuff, other bands who came like after 84, 85. But Rat at that time, they weren't like Motley Crue. Motley Crue was the more darker, you know, kind of thing. Rat was like pure LA.
Yeah.
It was
they're
just
so freaking cool. That's what they have. They have a cool sound.
Yeah, a cool sound. Warren D. Martini and what was the other guy's name? Robin Crosby, I think, who died from something, drugs or whatever. But yeah, extreme. I mean, they were guitar gods.
Yeah.
You know, the time, and the guy, the bass player, he's actually played bass for Dokken back when Dokken first started. And I didn't put Dokken on the list because there's only some Dokken songs I like. Dokken was just kind of.
I'm a big Dokken fan.
I like the first two albums.
Yeah.
But, you know,
and then can we put Queensryche in there as a hair band?
I would call them prog, but they're not. Yeah, but I would put in Skid Row too. But the last one I put in there is I'm a huge fan of Stryper. I will.
Right on. Yeah.
I'll put Michael Sweet and Oz Fox up against any guitar dude. And the thing about Michael Sweet is, I mean, he writes records personally and the band out the wazoo, I won't say out the ass, out the blessed assurance. But his vocals, he's got the range of Bruce and Rob Halford. So he can do the high-pitched screaming. He can do the high tenor like a Bruce Dickinson does without a problem. And he's as good a guitar player as anybody from Warren D. Martini to you. People don't realize that they do a lot of the dual harmonies and leads, and a lot of those are his. So he's an extremely badass guitar player, but people don't realize that he's a primary songwriter. He's the vocalist doing Dickinson, Halford type vocals, plus, you know, a guitar god himself. His vocals are so good for a while after Brad Delp killed himself. Boston had him. Tom Schultz brought him to sing for Boston, man.
Oh, right on.
So
did not know
yeah.
that.
So and in fact, he did a couple records with George Lynch. I think what's it called? It's not the Lynch Mob. That's his band, but something else. But Sweet and Lynch it might be called. However, I would definitely put them on the list. But yeah, I mean, at the time, even by the time you get to Turbo Lover, dude, Priest had been essentially, dolled up.
Yeah, they
to
did.
a degree.
They dolled up. Like I said, Ozzy did.
Yeah, Ozzy did for sure.
He was wearing the mascara and had the big old, what was that? What was the hairspray?
Aquanet. Yeah. And so, I mean, Zach was looking that way. I mean, I wouldn't call like
Pantera was a hair band.
Yeah, man. Pantera was a hair band. I was there, but but I wouldn't like Van Halen was kind of the precursor to a lot of those bands, but they were never a hair band.
Hell no. And any album that David Lee Roth was in was cool.
That's Van Halen. I love Sammy Hagar. Yeah. Okay, but I didn't like Van Hagar. I like Sammy Hagar as the Red Rocker.
Yeah.
You know, I Can't Drive 55, heavy metal, and There's Only One Way to Rock, and those were summertime, drink beer,
party tunes.
You know. But David Lee Roth was
next level.
Oh, dude, he was a philosopher, comedian, badass, sex symbol. And I think I appreciate.
How about my open mic night there when I sang Ice Cream Man?
Yeah, that was badass. If anybody didn't see that, I don't think they could. I think only Rebecca had that.
Yeah, it's on her feed. Just a part of it's on there, but
Max singing Ice Cream Man by Van Halen with a live band.
Dedicate one to the ladies. Everybody else that got up there on stage had like notes. They were looking at their phones, to read the lyrics. I was like, I don't need that.
Nah. You don't know Ice Cream Man.
Baby.
Yeah, it's he's been making the rounds a lot lately, David Lee Roth. And I tell you what, dude, that is, could you think about where he was as a poster boy?
Right.
You know what I mean? As this pinup, as this sex symbol, and the way he's aged hard. Yeah. But he embraced it. Dude.
Yeah.
He just is who he is, man. And still rattling off stuff like mind going 1,000,000 miles a minute. I don't know what the hell. He used to talk about how when he was a kid, he was hyperactive. Yeah, and that's no news there. But his parents would say, about dinner time every day, they called it the monkey hour. Because he would just go off and banging shit, pots and pans, and doing skits, whatever. Anyway, question number 2 from Mac. What part of Cooper's color code are you in at a concert? What are some Sentinel tips for attending a concert?
You know, I like that. I like that one because I go to concerts with Rebecca. So I don't drive to them. You know, I'll like at hotel, in an Uber to them. And then have a real keen understanding of where the Uber pickup is too.
Right.
Because in a big venue like that, there's only so many places where Uber goes.
Right.
You know, so you got to know where that Uber pickup is. When we go in, initially, I'm in the orange, man. Okay. You know, it's high alert initially.
And why? What are the potential scenarios that you're most cognizant of?
I mean, it could be anything. You know, it could be domestic terrorism. It could be an explosion, you know, equipment failure. You know, how about when bad weather comes in and all the scaffolding comes down and stuff, you know how that happens at shows. There's a lot of stuff that can happen in a venue that's jam-packed with people. Right. Not only that, but something small might happen. You know, something falls and it makes a loud sound and somebody yells gun, you know, they cry wolf, and then panic ensues and people start charging, you know, like the Who and what was that, 1981.
Oh yeah.
So I'm in the orange when I go in the venue and just doing a big scan and freaking everything. Now I always buy good seats. I don't buy nosebleeds. I always buy good seats. And then I remember like the Charlotte venue, for instance. I say, hey, if shit goes down, we're going that way. And I'll point to her. And she goes, yeah, perfect. Right. You know, it's like the sides of the stage. I said, we could go over that fence right there. Right. Or, you know, because the exit, everybody's going to be running for the exit. We're going that way. Right. That's the way we're going because from there, it takes us, you know, through the food court and then out into the parking lot. Right. You know, we're oriented. We're switched on. And then I could go into the white. You know, for the most part, I could go into the white. I mean, at Slayer, I had to punch a dude out. but I was only, you know, back into the orange it was just a little bit. But he needed to be dealt with. Somebody has to be Batman, you know. Yeah. But I like that one. So that's my Sentinel tips for that.
There you go.
And I have a flash. I'm carrying my flashlight with me too in those in case all the power goes out. You know, so I got a light. I got a light on.
So you can't carry any kind of
no, not even a knife.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. How do you feel when you see the flag or hear the anthem?
Is that for both of us?
I guess for both of us. It didn't indicate.
You know what? I think it depends on the situation. For instance, you know, in the front of my house, it's pride. I make sure that it's not all raveled up, twisted up. At a big venue like a sporting event, you know, and where they have a military display and that kind of thing, you know, I'm oozing pride, especially when, you know, the crowd is singing along. It's like, it's the best thing, man. Everybody knows the lyrics to this. It's so freaking good. But, you know, at a funeral, it's of course different. You know, it's very somber. But it depends on the situation, on the venue, on the circumstances.
So, I mean, because you've been to war, you know, and maybe you feel like as a soldier or whatever, not everything is necessarily justified. Maybe politicians are just pulling levers and, you know, you just happen to be the guy pulling the trigger, let's just say. Right. And so that can sour some people over time. So you're able to differentiate between a politician and the country. And so when you think of country, what do you think of?
When I think of country?
Yeah, this country.
Man, that's a pretty deep question, and I haven't had any time to think about it.
Well, so somebody's saying, you know, but they might think Washington, D.C. or, I don't know, you know, something. In other words, they're not necessarily thinking of the people, or they might think of the land. They might think of, you know, something ideal that America represents or whatever. You know, obviously we're viewed differently in other parts of the world, some good, some bad. But, you know, how do we who are in it, you know, you mentioned hearing people sing the lyrics of the national anthem. Do they understand the meaning?
Right. Yeah. I think if there's those people who are singing it, my opinion is yes, they understand the meaning. That's just my opinion.
Did you ever look at your sleeve or something when you're in the military and haven't, even though you've seen it a million times, see the flag on your lapel and just
nope.
Shoot. Well, there it is, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me as a lifetime civilian, I've got 53 years in the civilian experience, Mac, just in case you want to know how deep my background goes in civilian life. Tier 1 civilian.
Right on.
I made selection by making it through my mother's womb. And yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I still grew up in what was the last vestiges of classic Americana.
Right.
Whereas you and I grew up where, Boy Scouts were the Boy Scouts, man. You read Boys Life magazine, and pocket knives were badass, and running around in the woods was cool. And, my favorite war movie as a kid was To Hell and Back.
Oh, yeah.
Audie Murphy, you know what I mean? And he played the literal character,
right.
In the movie. And I don't know, man. It's just, you realize that was, I mean, I was there. You were there with the Bicentennial year.
Yeah, right. Oh, man, that was cool.
And I went to Washington, D.C. My stepdad took me and my brothers and, of course, my mom to Washington, D.C. for the fireworks. I mean, Washington is going to have a tremendous fireworks display anyway. But this was the Bicentennial, dude.
Right.
So that it was packed. I remember that at the time that song "The Streak" was real popular, and streaking was.
Oh yeah.
So I remember, man, we were around that big. What's that big water thing?
The reflecting pool.
Is that what it is?
DC, yeah.
Right in front of the memorial.
Yeah.
So we're all gathered around that, and so everybody's just waiting around, and it's packed. And some gal, man, stark naked, is just running down the opposite edge of the other side of that reflective pool.
Yeah.
With two sparklers in her hand. Everybody was just like, yeah. And I'm a little kid going, I don't know what I'm looking at, but this is badass. Now, I had the opposite experience when he took us one time to the Thanksgiving Day parade in New York City. And it was cold as hell, as in Thanksgiving Day parade, because I was a little kid, and I'm standing right next to a whole bunch of guys from the mental institution, and they must have been on level 3,
right?
Because I don't even know why they were there.
Yeah,
I mean, they were just like the gruesome looking. I mean, they weren't hurting anyone, they're doing it, but I was literally right next to them, and I could not enjoy the parade because I kept thinking, is he like snot coming out of his? I'm a little kid, dude. I look like a monster to me. But anyway, growing up in that time, there was just every day you saw your TV shut off to the American flag and the national anthem.
Yep, and that's how 6 a.m. too.
Yeah.
Yep, that's how it turned on.
So when you were a Boy Scout, it was about the flag. We were taught how to fold the flag and do all these things. And I remember it was a big thing. Never let the flag touch the ground.
Right.
I mean, that was like, it was as severe a threat as or a scare as your mom telling you don't eat something and go in the pool.
Right. Right.
Because you're gonna get cramps.
Yeah.
And we should think we had
15 minutes.
Yeah. Because if you didn't, like if you did it at 14 minutes,
right,
that somehow
you were dead.
You were dead. Your body would like freeze up and you would drown.
Yeah. Hey, I got a 1976 story. I don't know if I told you this one. So Bicentennial story. There was a drawing. So Connecticut drawing. You had to cut out these little slips in the newspaper, fill them in, put them in an envelope, put a stamp on it, and mail it in. And the prize was to be part of the Bicentennial celebration, Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus. I won first freaking place.
Did you really?
I rode an elephant with
out.
Gunther Gable Williams, bro.
Damn.
Gunther Gable Williams. Yep. I rode an elephant with him. Yep. They had me all dressed up in this colonial gear and all. Yeah. Yeah. My folks still have pictures of it.
That's what?
Yeah.
Dude, you got to throw that down on Throwback Thursday. Or Flashback Friday. I don't care.
My folks don't have digital cameras or anything.
Oh, man.
They would literally to send me a copy. They would go to the library and make a paper copy, put it in snail mail.
Well, next time you go, you guys take a picture.
Yeah,
of that,
I got to take. Yeah.
Because I went to Ringling Brothers when I was a kid at Madison Square Garden, man,
Yeah.
and that was magical. I mean, I know everybody's got their views about the circus and thing, and I didn't. When you're a kid, you don't know anything about that. But dude, that was a massive, massive show. That's a lot out of that one question.
Yeah, bro. Damn.
What tips do you both have for raising a daughter?
You've got to be a good male role model because you are the male in their life. You got to be tough but sweet. Right. You got to put your arm around them. You got to console them. You got to empathize. All that stuff. But you have to be tough.
Right.
You got to be a tough guy.
Yeah.
Because you're their first dude.
Example of what a man is going to be like. Yeah.
And I got to tell you too, for guys out there, when you're dating a gal, always ask what was her relationship like with her dad.
Mm-hmm.
You have to ask that because if it was shitty, achieve separation. Look, grab, pull, and cut away. Get out of it.
Use a flashlight if it's dark.
Yeah, get out of it because it's going to come back and bite you in the ass.
Just
speaking from experience.
I'm going to ask her about her dad, and if it doesn't go good, I'm going over that gate.
Yep, right.
You can find your exit. Yeah, there is obviously a difference. I mean, the world might be confused about genders. I'm not.
Right.
So yes, I'm treating my daughter differently, and enjoy it that she's your little girl and all that wonderful stuff. But at the same time, understanding that they process different, their little worldview is different. And I think what Max said is essential. The relationship with the father is, that's going to shape everything. They may even if it's a bad one that they have with their father, they may gravitate towards people who are still just like their father.
That's right.
Because they got the daddy issue they just can't seem to get over. The only thing I guess I would add to it is, and this is in relation to a situation with my daughter who is at home. She's 21, and she's going to school. But I've had people say, well, she needs to be doing this and she needs to be doing that, etc. I'm still very traditional. When I say traditional, I'm talking about ancient. I'm not talking about the 1950s. I'm talking about ancient, like, Abraham and Sarah kind of stuff, where there was very clear laws and tradition about what daughters were. That's where we get the ideas of dowries and things like that, because in that ancient world, having 4 or 5 girls was not a good thing, because you needed boys to be out there to work with the herds and do all of that. So, under that culture, women were considered a liability. So that's what fathers were compensated in things for daughters, and it may sound all weird and messed up, but that was the economy of the times. But there's a lot of this that is still in our wiring. That's why, again, we gravitate towards the guy movies, because we're wired to, protect and hunt and kill and see things through, black and white, and that's just the way we are. Whereas, again, we're painting with broad brushes here, but women tend to be, they gear towards what they are geared towards. And if you don't have that in mind, and you're buying into what the culture's telling you about equality and what have you, you may put a little too much on your daughters that they don't need to necessarily carry.
Right.
So with my daughter, I tell people, I said, no, what is it you want me to do with her? Well, she needs to go out and get her own place and do this and do that. I said, whoa, Hot Rod, where'd you get that from?
Yeah.
Who told you that?
The interweb.
Cosmopolitan magazine? No, I'm not setting my daughter up for rape.
Right.
I'm not setting her up for abuse. I'm not setting her up for whatever. It's like in the original garden story, when God makes Eve, he tells Adam, he says, for this cause a man shall leave father and mother and be cleaved to his wife. Leave and cleave, right? So I think modern culture is, they like the in between that time, the one where there's no responsibility,
right?
Casual sex and just doing whatever. because being a part of this household is covenantal with mother and father. You're leaving to cleave to a wife, which means another covenantal relationship that has economic meaning and purpose and longevity and generations and all that. They're, again, trailer park aristocracies.
Right.
You know, they have meaning. You leave the old covenant for a new one, right? So this middle time of just living life and finding yourself and all this other horse shit in your own apartment, what good comes out of it? What meaning, what purpose, what is this working towards? You have this casual time. What's my daughter supposed to live for these several years in her 20s? Oh, I don't want to get married till I'm 35 because blah, 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 blah. Yeah, well, you're an idiot.
Right.
I mean, you're an idiot. You don't serve a functional. In other words, you're just going to get married because that's what people do.
Right.
No, I get married because that's the queen. Because you need a queen to rule an empire. And because I'm here to build an empire, I need a queen. And so then kids become princes and princesses, not to blow sunshine up their ass and buy them Barbie doll. Not that kind of princess. I mean those who know how to govern. They know how to rule. They know how to serve. They know how to. It's about that. And so fill them with that kind of vision, man. But protect them. No, I'm not turning my kids over to rape culture or stupid culture or to go hang out with your idiot son who can't control himself, run into his ass at a bar and, he's going to play whatever games. No, because she's not at the play, because she hasn't cleaved only to something, I'm still the one she's cleaved to. Not in an unhealthy way at all.
Right.
Just under my watchful, under my jurisdiction. She can do what she wants and experience life and whatever, but if she's got this hankering just to rage like a serious Jamaican, well, then we got a problem.
Yeah.
That ain't liberty, man. Number 5 for Mac. I already know the answer to this. Do you use any supplements like creatine, BCAAs?
Now, I remember we did a test at the unit, creatine, and the thing is, creatine works when it comes to building muscles, but you build all the muscles and you build your heart too. So your heart gets bigger, and so your blood pressure goes up. And I remember feeling logy. You lose speed. Okay. So I remember writing about this, and somebody got poopy pants about it on the interwebs, where I said that most all supplements are just expensive urine.
Well, yeah.
The answer is no, because I get everything through my diet, through food. I have a bottle in my cabinet of multivitamins. Okay. And every once in a while, I'll say to myself, man, I feel tired today. I need a multivitamin. And I'll pop one, and even if it's just
is it a Flintstone chewable?
Even if it's just a placebo effect making me feel better, well, so be it. So guys who take a plethora of vitamins a day, they got all their little cups and their oils and everything. Even if it's just the placebo effect, if it's making you feel better, freaking spend that money, man. Right. Knock your socks off. Right. But I know nothing about any of that stuff. People will give me, hey, this amino acid or this post to pre-workout stuff. And
you're like, that's not why I work out.
Yeah, man. I can't get in the habit of taking anything. So I have no idea if it works because I'm a bad pill taker. Even if I'm hurt, I'm bad at taking like a pain med, right, or ibuprofen. Right. I just suck at it. I mean, I should be taking aspirin every day, and I don't even do that.
I did that for a bit. The whole blood thing. Mm-hmm. And when I exercised one day and was doing like a deadlift or something, I noticed like the following day I had broken a blood vessel in my eye.
Your eyeball, subconjunctival hemorrhage.
So, yeah, that. And I can't spell it, but I've lived it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I kept thinking, what in the hell did I do to blow a blood vessel? And I'm thinking, I didn't do anything. It took me a while to, Sherlock Holmes to figure it out, but it was because I thinned my blood.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, before pumping iron, right? It was Jack LaLanne.
Yeah, man. I grew up on Jack LaLanne.
Right? Remember that?
Hell yeah. We watched I think he came on once a week. like Saturday or Sunday, something like that. But we were watching.
Had that one-piece outfit.
Yep, his jumpsuit.
Yeah, and so he would be doing his thing, and then you would see Charles Atlas in the back of comic books, with a guy kicking the dirt,
right,
or sand or whatever in the guy's face, and he's skinny, becomes big, whatever. But you never, but that had nothing to do with training so much. But after Pumping Iron, the whole Jack LaLanne thing disappeared for the most part. And, 80s, you got aerobics, but that's when everything became a bodybuilding approach. So that was equated with fitness.
Right.
Right? So you were saying fit. Well, somebody can go in and do those bodily exercises. That doesn't mean fitness because it certainly doesn't indicate anything of an aerobic nature, right?
Right.
Which would be an obvious pillar to what you would define as fitness. If somebody's very muscular, but they can't run 100 yards without collapsing and out of breath, then what does it matter how wide their lats are how is that fit?
Yeah,
right?
I it's because like during the creatine, I got a picture. I'll show it to you. I'll send it to you. But during those creatine days, man, I packed on some muscle, and I was doing like more bodybuilder type of work, but the running suffered. Everything else suffered. So I like to tell people you got to find a balance. Especially with guys are too eager to say, I want to pack on some muscle. Man, be happy if you're thin and sinewy. Right. And the other thing is we all have a fighting weight. Some people are heavy, some people are skinny. Find your fighting weight and try to stay there for as long as possible. Like I've been 210 pounds for a decade and a half.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
man.
I've been right there between 207 and 210.
That's pretty good. Now, how much can your weight fluctuate in a 24-hour period?
3 pounds.
Yeah.
About that. I came off that last training trip and I was 5 pounds down.
Wow.
Yeah, I was, and you notice it on guys who are fit, you notice it.
Yeah, and you put on a shirt or something, it's not the same.
Yep.
So you basically don't take.
No.
He does a Flintstone chewable every now and again.
I should do the Flintstones. Yeah.
St. Joseph's aspirin for children. Okay, what are your top 5 favorite Western films, Mac?
All right, so the first one was a no-brainer because it's one of my favorite movies of all times. And if you haven't seen it, this is like you need your man card revoked if you haven't seen The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Oh yeah,
it's a well put together movie with a theme. There's a great theme, and there's several themes. There's good guy versus bad guy. Because you got Eli Wallach playing Tuco, and you got all these great actors in it, and then they're going after a prize in the end, but they fight in wars and all this stuff. Man, that movie is so freaking Lee Van Cleef. Oh my God, that freaking movie is awesome. I also wrote down, it's another spaghetti western, Two Mules for Sister Sarah. If for no other reason that, man, I love that soundtrack. Yeah. And then I don't know if this is classified as a western, and we may have talked about it was filmed in the West during, late 1800s. So I'm going to say it. And once again, if you haven't seen it, just your man card has been revoked. Jeremiah Johnson.
I knew he was going to say that.
That's also one of my all-time favorites. And if they ever remake that, I'm going to be pissed.
Yeah. I think you can classify that as a western.
Yeah. And then True Grit. Because that is like the epitome of a western. It's awesome. That's a good movie.
Yeah.
And there's some great characters in that. There's a lot of actors, even though they carry it's all like cameo. But there's like Dennis Hopper's in that.
Yeah.
And what's his name? Robert Duvall.
Oh yeah.
He's in it.
Yeah. Wow.
Yep. And then the last one I put a newer one, only because I think it's cool. Now there's a lot of good westerns, but this one I've seen like 3 times and it's kind of spooky too. Was Cowboys and Aliens, because I like D. Craig. But I just put that down kind of for shits and grins.
Yeah.
But it's a cool movie and it's pretty scary, and yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, I would do. I would throw Outlaw Josie Wales.
Oh yeah.
Pale Rider I thought was cool.
Yep.
And then mine I have to jump to the newer ones like I love Tombstone, Unforgiven.
Right.
I think it's a good one, and Blazing Saddles.
Yeah. Blazing Saddles came to mind. Yeah.
It's just like that's you can't. I don't know. Can you show? Would they show that movie today?
Hell no. You know how many feelings would be hurt if you showed that movie today?
Mel Brooks, man. But there's something about, and again, there's a difference when you grow up with certain things. Other people can appreciate them today, but if you didn't grow up with them, then it's hard to get the vibe of it all. But spaghetti westerns is one of those things where you're just, I mean, you can look at it from a cinematography or editor standpoint and go, well, you could make that better. Mm-hmm. You could shoot this, but and it's like saying you could make Star Wars better.
Right.
Okay, well, don't.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah,
don't.
Right. Yeah, don't. Man, don't.
It is what it is. And you'll lose the vibe of the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And Clint Eastwood, I mean, how many of those freaking things did he do, dude?
You know what? I'm willing to bet there were 10. I'm willing to bet. Yeah. Because you got a fistful of dollars, $2 more, 2 meals for Sister Sarah. You got what's the one where he rides into town? He's a dead guy. Paints the town red.
Isn't that Pale Rider?
No. Dude, am I spacing on this movie's freaking great?
I know.
He was the sheriff of the town. And they hung him and they whipped him to death, and he comes back.
Damn it.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, folks. My man card should be revoked for that one.
Freak.
Yep.
But yeah, there's something about those movies at that time. I don't know whether it's just Clint Eastwood. You ever see any of the interview with Joe Rogan did with his son? I forget what his son's name is, but he's in all kinds of stuff and does his own thing. He's acted in some movies and good communicator. And so Joe Rogan's talking to him, and Joe just goes, "Dude, your dad's Clint Eastwood.
Yeah,
doesn't that fuck with you?" One time we went. I had to do something out in Monterey, Northern California, and we went to what the town is. Is it Carmel or something like that?
Yeah,
I think
Carmel.
Yeah, so we were going. They were taking us to this. Some friends of ours were taking us to this.
Clint was the mayor of the town.
Yeah, to the piano bar down there, and so we're driving down the road, and my buddy's driving, and we have to turn on the street at a stoplight, and so he's like, the other guy wouldn't go. He had the right of way, and he's just like yelling at him, and guy drives right by us. It's Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, right.
Dude, you were yelling at Clint Eastwood, calling him names and shit, man. God, you're lucky the freaking Magnum didn't come out of that and just fucking blow you.
Do you feel lucky, punk?
Well, do you? Those are all great.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
All those movies.
Yeah.
And even the Any Which Way But Loose.
Yeah.
What was the one, was it Gauntlet or the one where he's in the bus?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right, he did that.
Yeah.
Those are all great movies,
Gauntlet,
man.
Yeah.
Okay, those are our favorite Westerns. Number 7, how do you see the future of America? Are we doomed? Is the future bright? How can we save it? Mac, answer this question in its totality.
Yeah. You know what? I didn't even...
No pressure.
I know. It's. I do not think that we are doomed. I think that we will. I think that we will get an awakening.
That's a good point.
Well, the thing is, we thrive when we're at our best when things are at their worst, and I think that we'll get a slap in the face again, and I don't think we're doomed. There's enough of younger generations who are still proud of their country, their republic, and that they have a good enough grasp on it where they are going to influence others in seeing, because we're not the best country in the world, we're the greatest country in the world. I had a guy from Yugoslavia, from one of the maybe Croatia, tell me that. But I don't think we're doomed, but I think we need a reawakening.
It's kind of, I think you're right. And there is interesting things happening now under this administration, because you're dealing with someone who is not a politician.
Right.
And he is a get it done doer kind of person. And so he's doing things that nobody's ever done in the world.
Well, and nobody knows about it because nobody reads or watches the news. They're getting news through, talk shows and social media. But no, really, I mean, the military's been rebuilt. ISIS is dead.
Right.
Flint's been saved. Cleaning up the oceans. We're leading the world right now in emissions reductions. The prison reform. I mean, we're saving $1 bazillion. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. So,
and we might put up a wall.
Yeah, man. I hope so.
But
it's going up right now.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting though is that I'm looking at these numbers lately, and all of the news agencies, newspapers, etc., they are bleeding. Mm-hmm. I mean, he has really turned the whole fake news thing. It really because they keep reacting so strongly to what's going on that they then shoot themselves in the foot. It just makes the things even worse. And because they're giving voice to such really radical ideas and ideologies and things, from gender to green deals to whatever. I mean, it's you're throwing pork chops in a baby crib.
Right.
The people can't take this kind of stuff. And so, how else do you explain having the entire media against you, but yet still this guy's numbers say hi? So that means people are not listening to what's happening.
And that's pissing the media off too, because that's not reported, but his approval rating is pretty freaking high.
Yeah.
It's higher than Obama's was during the same amount of time in the first term.
Yeah. So I look at that, and then I look at what tends to happen when things go crazy one way. They eventually go a little bit too far, and then the pendulum starts to swing back the other way. And things have gotten a little too far with certain stuff culturally and socially. Yeah. And so it's going to have to start swinging back. But the thing that I love about, and it comes down to even something like this podcast, this is how you save it. This is how you save it right here. The fact that we have this ability, just regular dudes like us, to get behind microphones and video cameras and reach thousands of people. We're doing what we can in our world, right?
Yeah.
We're being responsible where we are. It's like Max says, you got a chance to be Batman. You got a chance to be, I don't know, Ronald Reagan, JFK, whoever your, person is. But yeah, man, this is how you do it. We have the power to educate each other, lift everybody's life up. So we don't, again, it goes back to that place thing. We have the potential. Do we leave the country, like some people say, because things are not to our liking? No, we say, this is home. This is the place we're supposed to be. Our potential is to change it. So now we know our purpose. So it's like, well,
bam.
Start you a University of Badassery podcast. Just don't call it that.
That's right.
Okay, so related to that, then, if there was any other country you could live in besides America, which would it be and why?
Dude, man, this was tough. This one was tough.
Very tough.
Because I've been to a lot of different countries.
Oh, sure you have.
And there's very few of them that I would want to live in. I tell you one that's kind of easy is Australia, because it's kind of like USA but bizarro world.
Yeah.
It's on the same latitude, only in southern hemisphere.
Right.
And, geographically relatively same size as continental US, ish. There's nothing in the center of it, though. It's just all wasteland.
I would say Australia, but I'm scared to death of koalas and sloths. You're like, yeah, that's not the place for you, man.
Yeah. So that would be an easy one for me, because I liked the the people. It was an easy transition. Another place, and I haven't even been there, is like Chile or Argentina. I haven't even been there, but I want to go, foothills of the Andes, and because that's like one of the only places on the globe I haven't been is, deep into South America like that. That was tough.
Very tough question. And I thought about it, and I thought, you know what? I know what I would do. And so this has a double meaning when I say this. I said, I would go to Canada because it's the closest thing to America.
Right.
In two ways.
Yep, right.
It's like right over there. I can still drive in.
And it's still America. You still call it America.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. They just have it. I remember going to Calgary, Alberta, and we're at the, I don't know, was some little store, dime store, or 7-Eleven type place, and looking at it was like all the same kind of candies and stuff, like Raisinets and whatever, but it was different names.
Right.
It wasn't made by Nestle's, but it was just like they have everything we have, but it's all under a different name.
Once again, bizarro world.
Bizarro world.
Yeah.
So yeah, and plus they got a lot of great metal bands out there.
Yeah.
It's just colder. But it's a huge countryside. So you can go to
Right.
East West Coast, British Columbia to Quebec, whatever. Okay, for Mac, what's the main component to my mindset that I need to have as an LEO, law enforcement officer?
Right. So I train a lot of LEOs, and I appreciate the world in which they live. It's a world riddled with ambiguity, where they have to be the masters of adaptability. They're damned if they do, they're damned if they don't. They're in constant fear of litigation liability, and there's a lawsuit attached to every round they fire. Now, so adaptability, I like to define that as using your existing knowledge to have a positive response to emerging situations. And I tell LEOs, I say, if you have to be that master of adaptability. For instance, if you get a call for something benign, something vanilla, like domestic disturbance, on the way there, if you're not thinking worst case scenario, if you're not thinking 300-pound naked redneck covered in blood, severed head in one hand, AK in the other, you're wrong. Because you never know what that can develop into, right, that scenario in their world. So I think that mindset right there, that always expect, we don't plan to fail, but we fail to plan. And when we do, we get experience. And experience is something we get shortly after we need it.
All right.
But you have to have that mindset as a LEO, that I have no idea what this can develop into, or how this can degrade, or how this, can turn into something absolutely horrible.
So you're thinking, again, the biggest personal threat. What could
I'll always plan on worst case scenario, and if it's vanilla, then bonus.
Yeah, it's just gravy.
Yeah, if that the domestic disturbance is just one old lady yelling at one old man, then bonus.
But if it's naked 400-pound Jethro,
right?
With his...
covered in blood, severed head in one hand, and an AK in the other, then you're already ahead of the power curve, because you've already planned it, you've already visualized it, so you're mentally prepared for that horrible thing.
I was at my buddy's 50th birthday the other day, and his son, his oldest boy, or second oldest boy, is a deputy for City of Raleigh Sheriff's Department. I think he's been 2 or 3 years now. And so I hadn't seen the kid since he was a kid, right?
Yep.
And so we're talking, and I'm saying, how's it going and whatnot. And so they were packing up to leave, so he brought his gun out. And I said, what do you got? And he was showing it to me, and we were talking about you. He goes, oh, dude, I would love to be in one of his choruses and this. And I said, man, he'd love to have you out there. Mm-hmm. I said, just check the website, see what's up. But we were just talking about his stories and just some of the things that he's dealing with.
They see some horrible shit.
Yeah. But I remember leaving that thinking, wow, I mean, it's not military in the sense of, guys in Afghanistan or in Iraq going door to door, but it's kind of, it's full of surprises.
Yeah.
And what really struck me, Mac, was how many instances he mentioned of people who wanted suicide by cop.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I had no idea that was that
right.
much of a big deal. Mm-hmm. Because, man, how do you control something like that?
Right.
He wants to go down,
Yep.
so he's going to raise hell.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It was just tough. And, so we're sitting there, and his young pregnant wife is right there. Hey, listen, I said, honey, I'm sorry to be talking. She goes, no, I know all these stories. And
right.
I said, well, good for you.
Right.
And I said, I said, you know what, Justin? I would really, really encourage you to, go to one of Mac's courses. Mm-hmm. First, start following him on Instagram and whatnot, and listen to the podcast, whatever. Because, man, what guys like him bring to the average police officer, et cetera, man, it's gold. You save your life, save a whole bunch of people's life, because I told him, I said, dude, I had no idea how little you guys train. He goes, they don't spend any money.
Right.
He said, we're not doing anything. If I do anything, I got to do it myself.
Dude, there's the mayor of Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm.
I read an article where he's banning his LEOs from banning them from doing anything outside of department training.
Wow.
Yeah. And threatening them with disciplinary action. It's freaking mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing.
What could possibly be the reason? What could possibly be the reason to do that?
I don't know. I better change the subject because I'm getting pissed off.
It's like you're not paying for it.
Yeah.
It's not taken out of the tax budget. All right, let's finish on a positive note.
Yeah.
Favorite 10 Kiss songs, Mac.
That's a lot of songs.
That's a lot of songs because there's a freaking huge catalog.
I know. All right, so I had fun with this one. A couple of them are just some of my favorite songs, period.
Right.
My number one is Calling Dr. Love.
Mm-hmm.
United Skates of America. In the 70s, I would go skating with my flannel shirt all unbuttoned. And when that song came on, man, I was the fastest, most coolest roller skater. But I love that one. I've got a couple of the usual suspects.
Now you got to sing them all, though. Is it?
Like Detroit Rock City.
Yeah, of course.
I Love It Loud. Now, I've got a couple on here that you may not be expecting. So, Tears Are Falling. This is when they were out of out of makeup.
I was gonna say I didn't put them in the category of a hair band, but
they
were
a hair
one
band.
of those bands who were doing a hair band.
Yep. And then another one. I like their disco tune, man.
Yeah. I was made for loving you.
Yep. So I got that one. Rock and Roll All Night, of course. And then let me see, Love Gun, Strutter. But these two next ones, I freaking love, man. God of Thunder and War Machine.
Yeah. I almost put War Machine on mine, but I ran out of.
Boom, 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 boom. I like when Gene sings, too. Oh, yeah. I like his guttural bass type of vibe, that demonic vibe that he has.
It's interesting
because Paul Stanley could sing.
Oh yeah,
Gene just like growls,
That was the gig, man. Yeah. I remember my buddy Todd. I saw him over New Year's, end of the year, and I've got the video. I should show it to you, but we were pounding margaritas, and then came home and pounded shots of Crown Royal, and just I felt like shit the next day. But we're up at like 2:00 in the morning, hammered, and he's going into the whole spiel about, he goes, basically, from our generation, you either liked Gene Simmons or Paul Stanley. Fuck the other guys.
Right.
He says, and if you like Gene, then when you got older, you got into like Metallica and Iron Maiden and Judas Priest. But if you like Paul Stanley, then you were into Rat and Molly Crew
and Dokken.
Yeah, right. So he's trying to make this point. And I said, dude, there's a logic in there. Yeah. I'm not quite sure that's the case. But Gene, because I remember Gene just the moves and the wings and the whatever. And you were just like, golly, he's evil. Yeah. And, when I think of the initial heavy songs and stuff that influenced me, I go back to God of Thunder as that was just that pounding metal, So I would say mine are, we picked some of the same.
Yep.
Parasite.
Ooh, all right.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yep.
Dun, dun, Hotter Than Hell.
Oh, yeah, good.
Detroit Rock City. God of Thunder.
Yep.
Cold Gin.
Oh, yep. That was almost on my list.
Calling Dr. Love.
Bam.
I Stole Your Love. They used to open their shows in the 70s with that one.
Yep.
Love Gun.
Yep.
Young and Wasted.
Oh, right on.
Off of the Lick It Up album. And I Love It Loud.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So we did 1, 2, 3. We had 5 in common.
5 in common. Yeah. It's, obviously Kiss has a lot of filler, but man, yeah, those early tunes, I'd love to hear some of the early tunes with better guitars than what they had back then, because like a song like Parasite is pretty freaking heavy. Now, I didn't put like "Do You Love Me" on there, but I would have loved that one too. I like "Hard Luck Woman."
Yeah.
You know, Peter Criss sang that
Right.
one. I like "Shock Me."
Oh yeah, good.
You know, Ace Frehley. But you know, we had to pick what we had to pick.
Right.
Anyway, that's all the questions for episode 5 of the University of Badassery podcast. Once again, with the fire-breathing professor of ass kickery, the epitome, what do I say, of toxic masculinity.
That's awesome, man.
Dude, always a pleasure. What do you want people to do to connect with you from here?
Well, check out my my website, tmaxinc.com, for any upcoming courses and all of the my storefront and everything. A lot of good bling on there. And then my Instagram at tmaxinc.com, TMACSINC. TMaxInc, not .com.
Yeah,
TMaxInc.
and go to his store, man.
Yeah.
For
there's,
sure.
There's
Go
a
to
lot
the
of good.
store.
There's a lot of good bling on that.
For those who are watching video, I'm wearing the Blaze
Blaze
Ops
Ops.
show story, the Series Up shirt. There's a different version of this with a bigger skull. You got to get you some shirt.
They got a Sentinel, make it habitual.
Sentinel make it habitual.
Yep.
What's the other one? Gas it up and burn
Gas
it
up and
down.
burn it down.
There's chick shirts on there.
Yep.
There's hats. There's these, what do you call these, dude?
Tumblers.
There's a 30-ounce tumblers. Oh, no, 20 ounce or
That
something.
one's the Killcliff one. But
So these his have got the
Blaze
the
Ops.
Mac Blaze Ops stuff on it, and there's other cool stuff. So you know, support those who support you. Mac is out here doing this for free, so you can turn around and give him some money.
Yep.
So go to the store today. If you'd like to follow me on Instagram at Metal Motivator. On Facebook, it's facebook.com/Metal Motivation. You can get to everything from metalmotivation.com. There's gear and stuff, all of that from there. I do a intense private coaching group on Facebook. You can join. Very inexpensive to sign up. Learn more about that also at metalmotivation.com. It's called the Life Domination Online Coaching Group. The creed of the University of Badassery, because everything like that has a creed. That is, to be a badass, you have to kick ass. And the first ass to kick Mac
is your own.
And with that, we'll finish with this. Remember, whatever you do,
Don't suck.
metal up.
Yeah.